The night was heavy, no moon, no stars, only darkness pressing against the earth. Somewhere in the low fields outside Charleston, a man walked barefoot, the soft dirt swallowing his steps. In his hand, he carried a broken lantern, the flame long dead. But inside his chest burned something far brighter, a dangerous dream. His name was Samuel. And on this night in the summer of 1822, he was not just a slave. He was a fighter, a conspirator, a man daring to challenge one of the most powerful systems the world had ever known. He knew what the cost would be. Capture meant chains. Betrayal meant the whip. Failure meant the gallows. But still, he moved forward. Because to Samuel, silence was worse than death. What he attempted that night was not merely an escape, it was a rebellion. A rebellion so carefully hidden, so silent, so fragile, that even history itself nearly forgot it. But tonight, we bring his story back. This is the untold journey of the slave who fought the night, Samuel's silent rebellion of 1822. To understand Samuel's night, we must first step back into the world he lived in. The year was 1822. America was still young, less than 50 years free from Britain. But while the nation boasted of liberty and independence, millions of its people remained enslaved, chained by laws, customs, and cruelty. In Charleston, South Carolina, the slave system was not just an institution, it was the lifeblood of the city. Rice, cotton, indigo, and sugar flowed through its ports, and behind every shipment stood the backs of men and women forced to work without rest, without rights, without hope. The city was tense. The white elite lived in fear of uprisings, knowing they were outnumbered by the enslaved population. Patrols roamed the streets at night, muskets ready, dogs trained to sniff out fugitives. The laws were strict, the punishments brutal. But still, beneath the silence, there was movement. Beneath the hymns sung in Sunday chapels, messages were hidden. Beneath the work songs that echoed across the fields, codes were passed. Beneath the stillness of the night, men like Samuel were listening, planning, waiting. For freedom is not always shouted. Sometimes it begins with a whisper. Samuel Hartwell was born on the plantation that bore his master's name. Like so many enslaved children, he entered the world already owned, already branded by a system that measured his worth in dollars and labor. But even as a child, Samuel's eyes burned with something different. His mother, a woman named Ruth, often told him stories in the quiet of the night. Stories of Africa, of rivers wider than oceans, of kings and queens, of ancestors who once walked free. Stories of Moses leading his people through the wilderness, stories of men who refused to bow. Samuel listened. He remembered. And somewhere deep within him, those stories took root. By the time he was 16, Samuel's body carried scars, whippings for slowing his work, for answering back, for daring to meet the eyes of an overseer. But his spirit was not broken. If anything, the lash only sharpened his resolve. He became known for his strength, his calmness under pressure, and, most dangerously, his intelligence. Samuel could read faces, sense moods, and memorize conversations. He noticed patterns, which guards grew tired at night, which patrols left gaps on the road, which men on nearby plantations might be trusted. By 25, Samuel was trusted enough to run errands into Charleston. This meant walking through the city streets, seeing free black men who worked as carpenters and sailors, seeing ships that sailed beyond the horizon, seeing what freedom might look like. Each glimpse was a blade twisting deeper. For Samuel knew that the difference between a free man and himself was not ability, but chains. And Samuel was tired of chains. The spark that lit Samuel's plan came from a story. In Charleston, whispers spread of a man named Denmark Vesey, a free black carpenter who, that very same year, 1822, was accused of planning one of the largest slave rebellions in American history. The city was shaken. Authorities panicked. Dozens of men were arrested, some executed, others driven underground. Whether Samuel ever met Vesey is unknown, but the story of Vesey's rebellion reached him like fire carried on the wind. It told him that resistance was possible, that others, too, dreamed of something beyond silence. Samuel began to gather men he trusted. At first, only a handful, men from his own plantation, men he knew since childhood. They spoke in code, in fragments, never saying too much at once. In hymns, they slipped in words of direction. Follow the river. Wait for the sign. The night will bring freedom. Meetings were held in shadows, in the corner of an abandoned barn, at the edge of a swamp, behind the wooden church after service. Torches were never lit. Voices never raised. The plan was simple but daring. On a chosen night, Samuel and his men would rise. They would strike at the overseer's quarters first, disarm them, and free others. They would move toward Charleston, where more would join. And if fortune favored them, they would reach the docks, where ships bound for the north, or even Haiti, might carry them beyond the grasp of slavery forever. It was a dream stitched together with courage and desperation. But it was also fragile. For in a world of chains, trust was the rarest currency of all. Why did Samuel fight the night? The answer lies not only in history, but in psychology. Humans can endure hunger, pain, even loss, but what they cannot survive is hopelessness. For years, Samuel had watched men bend under the weight of silence. He had seen women whipped into submission, children sold like cattle, elders broken until their eyes turned hollow. He knew what silence did. It killed the soul long before the body. To Samuel, rebellion was not only about escape, it was about reclaiming his humanity, about proving, if only for one night, that he was more than property, that he could choose defiance over submission. And here lies the hook. Samuel's rebellion was not loud. It was not glorious. It was not written in the newspapers. It was silent, and that silence was his weapon. Because in silence, his enemies could not predict him. In silence, he could plan, move, and strike unseen. In silence, he could remind his people that even chains could not hold a will that refused to bow. And yet, that same silence would also become his undoing.